Final Fantasy XVI is a very hard game for me to rate. When I first finished it, I was tempted to give it a 9, but I quickly fell down to an 8, then a 7, and even a 6. But that didn't feel right either. Its highs are very high, but its lows are also incredibly low. It sure as hell didn't deserve a 9 out of 10, but it doesn't deserve a 6 either. I've been playing Final Fantasy games for a while now. I've played 4, 6, 7, 8, 12, I still play 14, I've played 15 and 7 Remake as well. I've also played lots of hack and slash games like Kingdom Hearts, Ninja Gaiden, and Devil May Cry 5. I believe that in its attempt to satisfy both the OG crowd and a more mainstream audience, Square Enix ended up creating a lackluster, lukewarm final product that doesn't fully deliver on either ends. I'll be making a bunch of comparisons to the God of War remake, because I think both games were in a similar situation. Final Fantasy XVI went from macro to micro, as in from turn-based to action combat, while God of War went the other way around and tuned down the action combat to be slower and more methodical. And of course, there will be spoilers being discussed. Without further ado, let's talk about story and character relationships. FF16 has a cast of very interesting characters with a lot of potential for them to become well known and beloved by the series. But similarly to Final Fantasy XII, they aren't given enough time to shine. The character I was most disappointed in was Jill. Jill had all the potential to be a memorable and a favourite of the cast. She had an excellent character design, she's the dominant of Shiva, and she has a close relationship to Clive which could be expanded throughout the game. Unfortunately, it's my opinion that Square Enix flubbed on this character really hard. It seems like the writers really didn't want her to do anything. When Bahamut was on a rampage, why didn't she Shiva up and help Clive and Joshua? When you go to Mount Drustan, she transforms into Shiva but is relegated to holding back the lava so you can fight the lava boss. Even at the end, instead of Clive and Joshua and Jill going to confront Ultima, it ends up being Dion that goes with the brothers. Even if we disregarded all of that, so much of her history and relationship with Clive is marred by the game's inability to show, don't tell. For those who don't know, show don't tell is a common writing technique, where instead of telling the audience something via exposition, it's revealed via actions in the game. You see a lot of movies fail this when someone explains something to a character that the character should already know, but is done for the sake of the audience. A lot of character history between Jill and Clive is told but never shown. One example that stood out to me was when you brought Jill to Northreach, and she goes,
"Just being here reminds me of when we were children. Do you remember? Walking down Market Street in Rosalith, taking in the sights and smells."
How could I forget? What with Torgal's antics. Remember how his nose would prick up at the scent of sausages? He'd go racing away and we'd have to go running after him. We wouldn't catch you now, would we, boy?
Or when you're in the flower petals and she remembers,
"Do you remember when I took you to Man's Hill? Or tried to?"
How could I forget? You saw me crying and thought a change of scenery might lift my spirits. In the end, it earned me a nasty cough and a stern scolding from your mother. But I felt wonderful nonetheless.
this isn't limited to Jill either. In a Torgal side quest, you're brought to an old tree house where Clive and Torgal supposedly spent a lot of time together.
Here we are. This was our hideaway. Wasn't it, Torgal? Coming here helped me to forget who I was. Or wasn't. Prince, shield. Son his mother could love. Had I been any one of those things? Perhaps.
Just like with the Jill scenes, these were never shown to the players at any point before or during the prologue. The writers could have came up with literally anything and said, "Oh, this is what happened before. Isn't this emotional? You should feel sad right now." This combined with the fact that there is almost zero banter between characters in your party outside of cutscenes made it really hard for me to believe these characters were friends or had a close relationship. It's such a complete step back from 15 and 7 Remake, and it's one of those things where you don't appreciate until it's gone. Take a look at 15.
Damn, this place is hot.
Just take your shirt off.
Like you? No way.
What, too embarrassed to show your scrawny body?
Hey, I got muscle. You just can't see it.
If you say so.
Wonder what Gladio's up to right now.
Meeting girls, probably.
Son of a bitch!
Now, 15 has its own share of problems, but you know what I remember when I think of that game? I think of bantering with the bros, going on long car rides, eating food cooked by Ignis, taking group photos, camping in the wilderness while it's raining, playing mobile games with the boys. Tetsuya Nomura built character relationships so goddamn well in that game. Oh god, Tetsuya Nomura did character relationships better than Yoshi P, oh god. In 16, it feels like characters only interact for business. Besides it, no characters really joke around or talk about anything else besides the current mission. I understand 16 has much more of a serious tone than 15, and I'm not expecting 15 levels of goofing off, but some levity between the characters would have helped so much in fleshing out these character relationships without resorting to cutscenes. God of War also did character interactions really well, and integrated character development into gameplay sections. For example,
Big footprint.
Smartest man alive.
Well, you try making conversation with you sometime.
I've never been this interested before. Can I talk to animals or enchanted rings or whatever?
Much has changed. For both of us.
Well, yeah. I'm just trying to figure out why you'd help some random animal.
Is this not what you want?
No, it is. I'm just surprised it's what you want too. Look, Father, thanks for bringing us out here, but you don't have to do this kind of stuff just to keep my mind off Ragnarok, you know?
This was not a distraction.
No? Then why are we really out here?
Have you ever considered? He just wants to spend time with you, lad. While he still can.
Really?
We do not know what lies ahead. But if Ragnarok approaches, I wish to enjoy the time we have left.
I don't know what to say.
now that is character relationship development. It's not an unpopular opinion to say that side quests are one of the game's biggest weaknesses. Most of them are boring and uninteresting, and don't even give any worthwhile rewards. A lot of criticism about the side quests are that it's all fetch quests, which is true, but I think it's okay if it's disguised or framed properly with an interesting plot. One of my favorite quests in the game is the one with the boy and the father tricking bearers into dying. Mechanically, the quest is very simple, you just kill some wolves, right? But narratively, it's interesting and had a unique twist that made the quest memorable. The boy wasn't actually in any danger, he just wanted to see bearers get mauled by wolves. It was also satisfying to see the boy and father get their comeuppance later on. Unfortunately, almost all the other quests don't have a story interesting enough to cover up the fact that 95% of them involve you going somewhere to kill something. The game's tendency to drop 5 or 6 side quests all at once, especially during the later part of the game, completely kills the pacing and momentum the main story has been building up. Part of the problem, I think, is that the game does not offer anything else to do besides the main mechanics of hack and slash. There's no goat saucer equivalent, or chocobo racing, or really anything else to do in the world. There's no reason to revisit anywhere if not for a quest objective. With nothing else to break up the monotony of hack and slash into cutscene into hack and slash into cutscene, it makes the side quest seem even more dull. I'd rather they reduce the side quest to maybe half or even a third of what we have, and focus on telling an interesting story in each side quest. I'm not saying FF16 shouldn't have any combat in their side quests, but having some that put combat on the wayside could have been interesting and add some variance to the quest designs. The The map design in Final Fantasy XVI is not great. Exploration is almost completely pointless besides chess. The levels are linear, which can be fine, but they are very game designery. What I mean by this is, for example, you walk into a circular room with nothing there, and you know immediately this is gonna be a hard-marked location later. There's no reason to explore, and there are no hidden secrets to be found. I'm reminded of Final Fantasy XII when it comes to map design, but the maps in 12 were much bigger, and I think it was easier to get lost in them. It's perfectly serviceable here, but it's boring, which I think encapsulates a lot of things in this game. This section's a little short, but there's really nothing much of note to talk about when it comes to the maps. So let's move on to game mechanics and combat. It's a little generous to call FF16 a JRPG. I think we all realized that some RPG mechanics would be dumbed down when it was revealed it was going to be an action RPG. But I think Square Enix took it way too far. First off, I'm completely fine with not being able to play as different party members. I think as long as the main character has enough depth mechanic-wise, it should still be able to provide a complete Final Fantasy experience. What I'm not fine with is the major dumbing down or complete absence of overall mechanics from Final Fantasy. For example, there is a complete absence of status effects and elemental resistances. Bad breath from Morbo doesn't debuff you at all. I repeat, bad breath, Morbo, no debuffs. When it comes to elemental resistances, I can understand if they didn't want enemies to heal from getting hit by the same element or even do less damage, right? Maybe they wanted the players to be able to use any icon they want whenever they wanted. But at least give a bonus for using ice against fire, for example. It's this streamlining and removal of unique things that each mob has, like the Morbo, that makes everything feel the same and boring. And if you played Final Fantasy XIV, especially in the recent expansions, you know homogenization isn't new when it comes to Yoshi P games. The combat itself is pretty good and satisfying, though in my opinion, the base abilities are a little bare without iconic abilities to use. There's no incentive to vary up your moves when you don't have iconic abilities up. I could do this different thing or use this other move, but I feel like it would do more damage if I just did the basic square square triangle square square triangle. I understand that maybe they didn't want it to be too much like Devil May Cry 5, but extra EXP or gil for using different moves in an encounter would have been something to promote using every move in my arsenal. Overall, it's definitely one of the high points of the game, but it's also nothing special and has been done with more depth than other games. Also, Heaven's Claw and Ganglia is trash and Dancing Steel animation is way too long, Jesus. Oh boy. Crafting. Crafting in this game is the barest bare bones of bare ever. You do side quests to craft new weapons, and then you do 2 main story quests and you get a new weapon that outdamages whatever you got from the side quest by like 5 points. About maybe 95% of equipment and accessories are uninteresting. Most of them give cooldown reduction or 5-10% damage boost. None of them offer different ways to change up your playstyle really. You just put whatever equipment that boosts the iconic ability you're using. The most interesting accessory is the Berserker Ring that gives you a little slow-mo and extra damage when you perfect dodge. The accessories being so boring and offering mediocre stat boosts you barely notice anyway, I ended up only using XP and AP boost once. It feels like the devs were really afraid of making the player OP. Like, they probably charted out a time frame that the player should take for a boss, and they really didn't want people to take any shorter or longer than that time frame. You might normally take 5 minutes to kill a certain boss, but now it only takes 4 minutes and 30 seconds because of your 5% damage boost from your accessories and your +5 damage sword that you immediately replace. Everything to do with accessories feels completely pointless. Looking at God of War again, even that game has more meaningful choices when it comes to equipment. You bring loot you get from killing mobs to craft new items. This equipment comes with set bonuses. Some specialize in increasing your melee damage, and others maybe boost your rage mode. Many times, there are armors of similar stats but with different specialties, and it's not immediately clear which one is better than the other. It's minor, but it lets you spec out Kratos the way you want. Even the glyphs in God of War, which buff certain skills you use, buff them in interesting ways that go beyond +5 damage on this or that skill. There is none of these meaningful choices when it comes to Final Fantasy 16, and this is supposed to be the JRPG. I really wish the crafting was more interesting. Going back to what I was saying about debuffs, if they were part of the game, you could craft potions to deal with them, for example, instead of giving me useless tool gil on a random drop when I'm riding around my chocobo. Maybe you could give me some herbs that I can use to craft echo drops for an enemy that has silence or something. There's so much potential for interesting mechanics that go beyond hack and slash and dodge, but it's just not realized in this game and disappoints me so much. It's been a few months since the game's release, and I already don't hear anyone talking about it. Partly because I think that there's really nothing to discuss or talk about. The customization isn't deep enough to warrant much discussion or min-maxing, and once the story discussions are over, there really isn't much left to say. I haven't tried the new DLC that released, but no DLC can fix the inherent issues in the game. Personally, this installment is pretty forgettable. I spent a lot of time criticizing 16 in this video, but I want to be clear that there are definitely very enjoyable and amazing moments in this game. The icon fights are spectacular, and if you're an Asura's Wrath fan like me, you won't be disappointed. The whole part with Clive accepting the truth and assimilating his Shadow archetype was cool as hell, and any game that references the young Gen's Shadow archetype already gets bonus points from me. Any part to do with Dion also slaps, and he definitely deserves to be a fan favorite. If you enjoyed 16 a lot, more power to you. Maybe you value some aspects of the game more than I did. Personally, I see glimpses of what the game could have been, and I'm really disappointed with what we got. To me, Final Fantasy 16 is a lackluster disappointment.